Welcome to the grim, lawless 23rd century, following the fall of U.S. Gov and mass depopulation of major cities at the hands of the multi-trillionaire de Huberton family. Baptized in radioactive hellfire, a rare mutation makes Turbo a fiercely pumped scrapper, haunted by specters from her past, surviving the post-apocalyptic wasteland one deathmatch pit fight at a time. But when she rescues the stunning trophy girl, the unlikely duo are thrust into a harrowing odyssey, evading marauding berserkers at every turn on their way to the ultimate showdown as they uncover the horrific truth behind the fall of humanity.
Happy 2024, Jake Jacobs. How are you doing today?
Hey, Kurt, and all of our viewers, well, welcome to another calendar year. This is our second calendar year, almost coming up on our third in March, but we're making a post-apocalyptic comic here. This is a sci-fi tale called Turbo Pit Fighter. We're inking it, we're penciling it, we're conceiving of it, we're scripting it, and we're going page by page. We're just rounding out on the first 12 pages. That's going to be the latest installment of our Turbo teaser. And we're going to have a couple of bonus pages in there, and we're going to make that available on our channel. People should also tune in to our Comics That Influence series, where we go over really cool comics like this that we have. Then we also have our indie creator channel, so you can check out all of our interviews, and Kurt has a bunch of good ones scheduled for the next couple of weeks. So, Kurt, where are we right now on our progress? Because when we last left, we were talking about finalizing the back cover for the Turbo teaser, and then we're going to talk about the internal pages for the Turbo teaser.
Yeah. So you had been working weeks ago on which you have right in front of you, which was going to be the back matter for the back page of our teaser. So just like our first teaser, you had made a nice little pin up. I had then inked it and everything, and then you punk rock flyer splashed it with text and coolness. And so we were looking at the same thing. This is a placeholder where you had not finished the pinup that you have right now, and so this was one of your first concept drawings for Turbo, because she's got the leopard skin tights on.
Yeah,
but you're saying that pinup in front of you, is pretty much done. That you could send that to me as a pic from your wife's phone, so it's nice and sweet.
My wife's iPhone is better than mine. Yeah,
you got to pay. Yeah. And then once I start getting these inks to you, you can start putting them into your 1992 Quark Express and punk rock flyer making them up thing.
Yeah, and what Kurt's talking about with the punk rock flyer making, I have an example here, but yeah, I love the old zines, and also, I have a lot of information to get out. So, combining those two things, we can just stick a lot of fun, you got it right there, verbiage in. This one probably not so much, because if we make this kind of like the size of the page, we only really have space here and here. Yeah. So I'll have to move all that fun stuff into the 2 pages that are going to have Mr. and Mrs. Ike. Yeah. And I guess we're going to have to talk about Mr. and Mrs. Ike since they're there, but I don't know if I want to explain them, because they're coming up in issue 2. Yeah. And I want that to be organic. So maybe I'll just say, upcoming in issue 2, Mr. Ike, Mrs. Ike, stay tuned. And then we'll have
let
some
let
other
me just
column. Go ahead.
let me bring everybody up to speed on something you have been working on, and I think at this time, since about a month ago, we started talking about it, and you have been writing. You've started a Substack, which is Doom Mag's Substack, and
Yep.
I want everybody to know one of the reasons I have been working on and off with Jake in comic books since 90, I still think it was 95 we started, is
Wow.
I love Jake's writing. I think Jake has such a personal and emotional connection to true, I use these as only loving words, campy, trashy,
Yeah.
pulpy, exploitative, and it's quick. I'm not a big reader of comics. In other words, if you've got more than 100 words on a page, maybe 50, 20, 25 words on a page, 50 to 25, um, you're going to lose me, because if you're not doing an excellent job at illustrating what you're trying to say in the story and the medium of comics, you've just lost me, because I'm totally about the art. But that's the other thing about Jake, is he has this campy, exploitative, pulpy way of drawing as well. And the two things really work really well. And so, there's been times where him and I have inked together. There's been a lot of times we've just done things where we've just sat around at comic book shows, or just, at Jake's house making up stuff. So with your Substack Doom magazine, we're looking at you putting a lot of what you have been working on for years, maybe a lot of it in your head, but a lot of it in your sketchbooks, into this Substack that there's a link below in the descriptions that you can go to and you can find out. But, you know, linearness and creativity in my world does not, they don't coexist. To linearly constantly force yourself to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it just doesn't work. And I know you're pretty much the same as me, because we're both ADD, but you have the OCD.
Yeah.
And so I've been encouraging you to just really let it out, like all these ideas and the way this crosses and this, because one of the things we could actually say in our comic Turbo Pit Fighter is there's a world. There is a world, and each one of these characters has a connection to that world. They're just not there to get beaten
Yeah.
up.
Let
They're
me.
not there to,
Yeah. Let me just see if I can encapsulate it in the, like maybe the quick version of what I set out to do in my Substack. Kurt told me, Jake, you write so easy and it's just free flowing. Why don't you start a start up a Substack where you know put out installments, and you could really start to build a following that way. And it's stuff that I'm writing anyway for our world, for Turbo's world, and the prequels, that lead up to the Turbo world. So I started doing it, and when I did the kind of like introduction to it, which is going to be the first installment, and I read it over the air on like 2 or 3 episodes ago. And Kurt, you isolated the audio, and so it is a
yeah.
pretty good description. But I was sick, and so my voice is like really bad, and so maybe we should cut that again without all the and I kind of like stopped and and did some kind of like free form thoughts. Maybe you can get your AI voice, to do it too. But it really is tight, if we kind of just like get right to the nitty gritty. And the nitty gritty is, there was some bullet points of some highlights along the timeline. So in short, I'm creating this world where the world goes to hell, and it's actually called the end of the world. It's called the end of the world sci-fi timeline. And in that I have some highlights where there's going to be some bullet points to talk about, and I'll just go over, I guess, what the bullet points are. So this will be Doom Magazines or Doom Mags #1 Substack installment. The bullet points are going to be this kind of like non-superhero group called The Casualties, featuring Esoterra and Hellclaw. And they're going to be joined also by another female character on another bullet point. But that's going to be Chromita the She-Bot. And then eventually it'll be a 3-piece female sci-fi team that kind of look like superheroes, but they're not actually superpowers because the whole world is discovering enhancements, right? And it isn't just going to be them, it's going to be a lot of other people. It's going to be a new technology in the world. Another bullet point is going to be the arrival of the chronomorph giantesses. And there, I'm a little bit unclear how that's going to go. I would love to talk to Kurt and just see how I can shape that, because I have some ideas for it so far, but that's a little bit amorphous. There's going to be the Secret Chronicles of the Duke, and I have I'm going to give a spoiler teaser in this episode about that I'm going to give to Kurt and blow his mind. There's going to be the descent into cultism, featuring the Tuesday movement, and we're going to learn a lot about the cults that are going to spring up in the future as things start to go bad, because the corporate overlords, the Dehubertans, are taking such control that everybody's going to need kind of like a community to be part of. Otherwise, there's just no way to survive on your own anymore. Things are really going to get rough in the next couple of 100 years. Then we're going to talk about
now.
Like they are. Yeah, we're just starting to see the beginnings of it. And so, right now you have, Elon Musk and Bill Gates and the Waltons and the Kochs and all these, and the Bloombergs and all these families that are just kind of like, they have taken over in a lot of ways, but, we still have normal lives and we have a house and a car and everything. So what's going to happen when they consolidate? Right? What's going to happen when the billionaires all consolidate and there's really just one family, and what's going to happen when they start to, take over every industry, but then also military hardware industry? That's going to, there's going to come a time where there's not going to be a need for the US government, according to them, and you're just going to instead sign up for one of their life subscriptions instead. And if you're a subscriber, you live in a protected city or a protected area, region, you have air, water, because you're a subscriber. And if you don't, how are you going to survive? So you need to hook up with some of these other alternative movements. One of them will be the Tuesday movement, and it will be a very conspiratorial, very kind of tinfoil movement. And that's when Elevena is going to take it over. It's going to be hard fought, but eventually she's going to take it over, and she's going to merge a lot of the alternative movements into one large movement. So we'll be learning about all this stuff. But my last bullet point, and so there the bullet point is World's Ruin, the ironic saga of Elevena 2222, because the Tuesday movement is all geared towards the impending apocalypse that's going to be happening on February 22nd, 2222. That's why they call it the Tuesday movement. But there is a strong resistance, all led by a team of female super strong ultra vixens. And they'll be enhanced because of Elevena's scientific breakthroughs, but so will the bad guys be enhanced because other people catch on to the scientific breakthroughs too. So that's why it's called the ironic saga of Elevena, because she creates these unbelievable advances in technology and enhancing life, not just test animals, but also humans. And then the world really starts to go downhill fast when the bad guys get a hold of it, and it's unavoidable. The last bullet point here is the sentience. the slow birth of longevity. And I mentioned this to Kurt in an episode, but there are going to be in the turbo world and before, there's going to be these people that live to a very, very, very old age, and they're going to be called the sentients because their mind and their communication and their brain and everything is still around, but their body is going to be hosted in something that's a little more of a hybrid between technology and, I mean, cyborg stuff. Think like a brain in a jar, but there's also like organs pumping, and they have these cool wrappers or skins that they're in because they're going to be in like all kinds of like, you could have a Hello Kitty design, or you could have like a chrome tiger, or you could have you could have like a robot that looks like Cary Grant or whatever. Whatever the person's preference is will be their avatar, and and it's just going to be hosting their organs, but they're going to be alive. And the reason why they're going to be kept alive is because they have something that is keeping them alive forever, because they have either the codes to unlock treasures, money, unlock crypto, unlock caches of weapons, unlock caches of radioactive peas, unlock something that nobody can access unless they're still alive. Get it? So these are going to be these are all the bullet points that I have sketched out, and I'm going to be in my Substack installments releasing some writing based on all these things and kind of flesh them out. And then Kurt is also encouraging me to put in little spot illustrations and sketches and stuff, including conceptual doodles and all that. So that's going to be fun. But for this zine that we're talking about right here, these 2 pages, I think what I would like to do is take each of these bullet points and turn it into like a blast shaped dialogue box with a paragraph on each thing with some good promotional hype language like we did in the last back cover, like strap in for the thrill ride of your life when when you see the sentience and all that. And so we'll figure all that text out as we go, and it'll be fun to lay out those pages. But we're going to be promoting the world that Turbo is coming into, the world that the way the world gets the way it does with the space that we have. And it's also a way to promote the Substack, right? And if I don't know if Kurt, if you want to like reserve an ad space on there for all yours, for you got the Crom and you got the Gardner Fox.
Oh, definitely. Because one of the other things too, just to tap what you're leading us towards is, in 2024, because we talked about it occasionally on the air in 2023, is moving towards an anthology.
Yeah.
With Dune magazine. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll touch back on it. But keep going, brother.
Yeah, right. I mean, and one of the reasons that we're doing this is we're definitely have an eye towards possible collaborations with other creators. Our interviews are really fruitful in that we're learning where other creators are on their projects, and there's no reason why we can't put out like anthologies that tease multiple projects, right? And I mean, I was just looking at this. I have a copy of this right here, Dark Horse Presents. This is exactly the format, right? Where you have 3 things and you only have like maybe like a teaser's worth of each one, but there could be 3 really great creators, and the publisher is putting it out and promoting them all. And maybe one of them doesn't end up panning out. Maybe they all eventually get their own full length publication. But in the meantime, this is used to promote it. It's a vehicle, for promotion, and it's also getting stuff into people's hands. And and like Kurt is saying, like we have a lot of good content with our sci-fi timeline, that we should really be sharing with more people. So we're trying to widen that up And because our teasers only come out once every couple of months, right? And we're on a good schedule with that, but we also want to, um, we want to do like this drip campaign where we're kind of promoting our stuff, and then we're also collaborating with other creators, some of whom have their own projects, and they may overlap with us, like doing a little bit of art, maybe doing like a short sequence or something, and then or maybe they're just promoting their own stuff, and then we can use little snippets of that in our anthology, and we work out publishing deals where we're just like showcasing it, right? So all the above is happening, and we're just meeting right now on a Sunday to sketch and talk about all these great plans. So are you ready to hear the saga of the Duke?
I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can handle it.
You don't know if you can handle it. Well, why don't you let's do this. Why don't you start off and tell the fine audience what you know of the Duke so far, because I would
Well,
love to
see,
hear through your
the
ears.
reason I say this is because every time we start talking about it, especially something as esoteric and deep in the world of Turbo, character wise, it just sets me off. Like my imagination just goes wild. So what I'm saying, I don't know if I'm prepared for it. It's like, I have to be careful at being objective enough to take on what I can take on. But yeah, uh, uh, the Duke was like a character that I had made a question about his history in the pit fights that the whole world of Turbo is structured around, and so you have a very a colorful, WW. Kind of like wrestler, but he also becomes a politician and he becomes socially aware about what is going on and then tries to make things. But he, at the height, let's say, of his popularity and notoriety, he vanishes. But he's this hallmark, right? He's this iconic thing that's just always there. Now I can't remember how long ago he was to when Turbo's now in the pit fights. So that's like,
Yeah, we got to put him in on the timeline at a certain year. And we know that it goes from the 2070s all the way to the 2240s, because the fall of the U.S. government happens in 2222, so that's very easy to remember. And Elavena at that point is 24 years old. And then 20 years after is when Turbo takes place. And so we're going to meet, Turbo is going to meet Elavena in her 40s in the prison, late 40s, she'll be 44. And Turbo will be 24. So everything's going to be, so Turbo will always be, that we'll have like our female heroines in the age range of like 24, but of course Turbo is in flashback, ever since the age of 10. But yeah, the Duke has to be a legendary figure in the world of pit fights and pit fighting by the time Turbo is around. He will no longer be around, he'll just be an idea. But we are we're definitely expanding on the legend of the Duke and the concept of the Duke in a bunch of different ways. So it'll be somewhere when when society is still kind of normal, you know, because he's going to become a governor of a big state like Michigan. And so so let me just so that was great. You really kind of like recounted where we are so far. The Duke started out as an Easter egg when we were just thinking of like, hey, let's put a poster on the wall of the
yeah,
pit, right?
yep.
And let's have it say something, but let's put in a character, that's maybe like a legendary character, and we just drew a sketch and we just called it the Duke. they could be a John Wayne reference, or it could be like a royalty thing, like a
The
nobleman or
Duke of New
whatever.
York.
Right.
Who's the
Right,
Duke
the
of New
Duke.
York?
Yeah, it's like an old kind of like title, right? For I guess important people. All right.
Well, that was
So,
from Escape from New York.
oh, okay.
The
I
Duke
missed
of
that
New
reference.
York.
Yeah, I gotta
Go the
watch
Duke.
those.
Go the Duke. Yeah. Oh God, those are so
Yeah, I'm sure the Duke, idea has been used many, many times. And so, maybe we'll reference that. Maybe we'll
good.
reference that. Maybe the
Maybe.
Duke will get his name from the sci-fi movie, the Kurt Russell movie.
Or
Um
maybe he is using that reference from that ancient movie, that ancient literature known as VHS tapes, that he just
right.
liked it to be able to make his wrestlers personification. So
Yeah.
he takes that on.
Yeah, yeah, we could, or we could pattern it on John Wayne, right? Maybe because think about it. In 100 years from now, maybe John Wayne starts making movies again. You know, that's also possible.
Ooh.
All
Yep,
this kind
yep,
of
yep,
stuff
yep.
could be happening. We have to think about it. We can't think about like in terms of today. So at some point in the timeline when society is still functioning but on the decline. So you're thinking Mad Max 1 here. Um he's going to be a wrestler, a famous and rich wrestler that starts to get political, and because so many and because he's like a strong man, right? He's like a hero. He's like a role model. You know, it just like all of our famous athletes are today. Like we have more people looking up to LeBron James than we do Joe Biden, right? In our society. So just like just in the way that's always been a thing, he's going to take it upon himself to run for office and to try to save a big state from the takeover of the Dehuberdins. I reference in that first installment of my Substack of installment, Kurt, of that Massachusetts is just signing the deal for the life subscriptions with the
Yep,
Dehuberdins, and the
yep.
scientists want to get at it. Right. So he's going to try to rescue a state from the predatory capitalism, and he's going to run for office and he's going to win. And then what's going to happen is that when he is the governor, he is going to do some things that are not exactly legal with the current system. And here's what I mean. So, every state has a state lottery, right?
Yeah.
And in the state lottery, they're supposed to be raising money for like education and like,
Senior
you know,
citizens.
right. It's supposed to be like healthcare for seniors and housing and stuff like that. And people buy a ticket, and what happens is, there's a winner, and the winner gets a payout, and the state, takes all the profit, for all the losers, right? So Governor Duke, what I don't know what we're gonna call him. He'll have to have a real name, I guess, right? So maybe you want to help me with
Stay with
that,
that
but
personification.
yeah, well, they'll probably call him just the Duke, right? Because at that point, you're in charge anyway. You have a title of authority anyway. But what he's going to be doing is every time somebody buys a lottery ticket, you're going to have to buy it with a kind of currency that identifies you. So you'll buy it with a debit card, let's say. And what he's going to do is he's going to take the money, and instead of actually awarding prizes, he's going to announce fake winners. And this is going to be like he'll be the governor for like 8 years or maybe even 12 years. I don't know. Maybe we should push this into like 16 years. Because there have been we've in New York we've had a governor for 12 years, right? We had Pataki was the governor for 12 years, and I think LaGuardia No, LaGuardia was a mayor, but we used to, the politicians used to have like pretty long terms back in the day. So maybe, they'll get rid of term limits and stuff, and maybe he'll be the Duke, he'll be the governor for like, let's say, well, let's just say 12 for now. So over his, he starts this early in his term, and then, 10, 11, 12 years later, somebody discovers that these winners that they're announcing are not real people, and that there actually has not been any prize money paid out ever, and he's immediately arrested and he's thrown in jail, and that's when the Duke becomes a jailhouse hero, because where did the money go? Let's see if Kurt can figure this out. Where do you think the money went?
I don't know. I really don't.
Because everybody was identifiable when they bought the lottery ticket, he created a savings account for every single person. And
The fake people?
No, every real person that bought a lottery ticket.
Whoa.
And he was just letting the money stockpile and stockpile and stockpile with interest in the investment markets under the person's name, such that the more they gambled and lost, the more they own now. And so his thing after, like, let's say we'll make it like an even 10 years, was that he was going to announce that everybody who was wasting their money on lottery tickets now has an account in their name with compounded interest over a decade, and that it's now worth as much as a lottery jackpot, basically.
Wow.
Each person.
Wow.
So he'll become but the legal system doesn't care that he did that. But all these people now, right? So this will be millions of people who are now rich, or maybe they have like 10 grand, 50 grand. It all depends how many, lottery tickets they bought. And this is going to be a shot in the arm, just when society is going further and further downhill. He's got all these accounts in all these people's names, and he made them money because he, kind of took the idea of lotteries, and instead of making it like a one winner take all, he just made it an investment account for each person, and the money was managed by like a fund manager, and it was all getting interest. So he's going to be, sentenced to a long prison sentence because of this, because it's fraud, document theft, grand larceny, blah, 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 all this stuff. Meanwhile, all the people get their money, right? And, we could even make like an interesting fight on the state level, whether the state, like maybe some crooked state legislators want to try and say the people can't get their money back, right? So that would be interesting too. And
lock
this
it up
could,
in the legal system.
yeah, right. And so part of this is going to be the fight to, for the people to get their money, and maybe that, drags out, over time, and maybe that turns into protests and violence and all.
They could still be talking about like, oh, when they free the Duke, when the Duke has cleared his name, I get, $65 million. It's in that
Right.
account.
Well, they could.
All they have to do is they have to prove he's innocent. That's all they have to do. And as soon as they do it, then I'm rich.
Right. So you could tie the Duke's fate to the people's fate, or you could get,
which makes him
or
even
you could.
bigger. It makes him even bigger for
Here's
who
how
he was.
Here's how the Duke is going to get even bigger, regardless. So that's an interesting thing. Maybe we'll do that for a period of time. I mean, I think I want the people to get their money, because there needs to be a resistance, and people need to be able to afford the resistance.
I disagree. They shouldn't get their money. It should be something of like this, that there's money is still floating out there in accounts that people still have,
it'll be there,
and they're still waiting.
That could be for a while. Yeah,
salty.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a period of years, maybe like 5 or 6 or 7 years or more, that they're waiting to get their money. but we need to, that money will be a MacGuffin too. So we can
Mm-hmm.
release the money at some point, for some purpose. And you could set up some bad guys here that are trying to take the money. It's gonna be a big sum, and they're going to try to say that there should be, one of the ticket holders should get all the money, right? And so
Yeah.
maybe to fulfill the promise. And so maybe you do that, and then at that point, the lottery winners all enter a pact. All the people enter a pact. Whoever the winner is, no, distribute the money, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could play with this, but
Oh yeah.
here's one thing. Here's one thing is that when the Duke is sitting in prison and has become this, incredible folk hero for what he did for people, he is going to, and this might not even be his idea. This might be like the idea of some young crypto people who just decide, to do it in his name. But they're going to start the Duke coin, and everybody is going to be buying the Duke coin and spending in Duke coins. And I don't know if it's going to be, crypto or digital currency or whatever, but it will be a currency that grows and surges and surges and surges and surges to the point where it's just every bit as popular as the US dollar. And so on the cover of our comics, I want to have that the comic is, the cost of the comic and the cost of the comic in US dollars, and then the global currency, and then the Duke currency. So it'll be just like a kind of like a mainstay of the world, as it goes into like the 2100s, 2200s. Whenever, we got to figure out when the Duke is going to just, be plopped in on the timeline. But so he will be incredibly, incredibly rich. And when he gets out, he's no longer a wrestler like a WWE wrestler. At that point, he's a pit fighter. And he becomes the greatest pit fighter of all time. you know and because the thing is, in jail all these times he's been pumping iron, and he's been, and he's also getting enhanced, just like everybody's getting enhanced, and he's the richest guy in the world. He's one of the richest guys in the world now, but he's a benevolent guy, and so he's getting himself enhanced. And when he gets out, he's so powerful that he does these pit fights, and he wins these prizes, and he becomes even more rich. and and what does he do after the dehubertans get too big? Is that he launches a physical violent assault on the dehubertans. And I don't know, do you remember anything about that? I think we discussed that once, what he's going to do.
No, I can't remember right now.
Right. So after winning like a series of pit fights and taking these gigantic purses, he is going to spend a lot of his fortune developing these gigantic weapons that are going to take on the dehubertans right on their headquarters on a frontal assault. And he's going to build this gigantic mecha that he's going to
Ah,
be
yeah, yeah, yeah,
inside,
yeah. Yep.
and
I
he's
remember.
going to attack. And it's going to be one of the first gigantic mecha that actually works and actually operates, because in the real world, mechas are way too slow and cumbersome, to be real weapons. But he's going to figure all this out, and he's going to build this giant mecha, and it's going to be this huge spectacle, and it's going to be live on, broadcasted, everywhere, that he's going straight for the Hubertons, secured headquarters, and it's going to be this gigantic battle of automated weapons against this gigantic mecha. And the Duke is going to, the mecha is going to get destroyed, and all the Duke's, weapons, he's going to have like little drones and planes and other people that are helping him in little sidecars and motorcycles and all this stuff. And the whole thing is a gigantic battle, and the Duke loses. He gets put down, and his mecha gets destroyed and bombed, and he dies. on the biggest spectacular stage ever with everybody watching and all the cameras are focused. And then nobody hears about the Duke for a long time until it eventually is announced that the Duke wasn't really in the Mecca. It was just all a decoy, and that at that exact moment, he was going underground with a special ops team, and they had intel on the actual location of the Dehubertans, which was nowhere near their gigantic headquarters, and the whole standoff was just a stunt for
A
both
ruse.
sides.
A ruse.
Right. Yes, it was, but in the real world, the Duke had infiltrated the actual location and killed off the patriarch of the De Huberton family, and um and it won't be known whether he was alive or dead at that point. And then we can maybe make like maybe like one or two other heroic exploits, but he'll be the whole thing will have been a success, even though everybody thought it was a failure. The whole idea was just to take everybody's attention away, so that he could infiltrate the real fortress and have the element of surprise, because the Dehubertans were running the operation to take him down on all their screens in their command center, when all of a sudden the Duke bursts in real life and just starts cutting everybody down. So that, folks, is
Whew.
the saga of the Duke, and what we have and what we don't have so far, and how it's all coming together.
Well, that's
But
perfect timing because we're rounding the 40-minute mark, which will bring us out to 45 minutes. We like to keep these episodes bite-sized and let these guys get back to reading comics, making them if they do. So let's start heading out, Jake.
yeah, and and if anybody has any ideas for the Duke or any of these other bullet points, feel free to chime in. Anybody can suggest anything and be part of the game here, and give us some feedback on what we're doing. Let us know, and
And that's
especially if you're a creator, join the fun.
exactly. And that's what we're going to be spending the majority of our energy, other than working on Turbo and various other projects, leading us possibly to a anthology type treatment and getting things published, is building our community. So please, it's always the like, follow, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Blah 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 blah. We don't tell you guys that. We're hoping our content is engaging you enough. And if you've made it out this far, we have a feeling you're going to enjoy a lot of what we're doing and such. So I don't have very much to say other than I am super excited about 2024 and all the things we have planned and the things we don't have planned and we're going to have to deal with and we're going to have to work out because that's the way life is. But I already made a really good pass here on Berta, who's Mr. Ike's wife. Moses
Mrs. Ike,
butt down. Moses is butt down.
the
So,
the future ex Mrs. Ike.
yes, that's is one of his ex-wives, right? So, but Jake, I'm glad to be working with you. Like I said, I'm super excited and looking forward to 2024. What do you got?
That's it, man. Folks, check us out, and don't forget our other channels, Comics That Influence and Comic Creator Exchange. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Hope and go ahead and share this episode if you know somebody that might be drawing and want something to listen to. There's sometimes there's some podcasts out there that are interesting, and sometimes you just run out of good stuff and you need something new. So
Absolutely.
see you guys again.
All right. We'll see you next weekend, Jake.
All right.